y'all. Okay, so quick disclaimer. And sometimes I feel a little bit bad because I know too much. Okay, so y'all know I grew up in Dallas. I grew up around a lot of immigrants. And I know the massive fraud that a lot of immigrants, even who come here legally, I'm not talking about border hopping, like Africans, I'm not trying to be racist. I love the ones that come over here and do right, but I just know for a fact by living around a lot of immigrants that they do commit a lot of fraud. They do commit a lot of immigration fraud. I've known people who have come in here and completely, I don't know how they get this false documentation in here, but like no lie, I've known people who have come to the United States and they're full grown adults, but they're in high school. They're in high school and their parents are getting benefits for them being children and they're not even children. I know that people have confided these things in me. So a part of me kind of feels bad telling it, but I would never like go tell on an individual or a particular person. Another hustle that's long been going on. I know people who have done this. A lot of times I say, dang, it's just that these immigrants are hard working. These African immigrants are hard working. And to an extent, that's true. Two things can be true at one time, but they also hustle. So you'll see them go through marriage after marriage after marriage. And in each marriage, they got $16,000, $20,000. Oh, this is how I got this car or this down payment on the house. And before the Trump administration, it was easy to commit marriage fraud, which is what Ilhan Omar is being accused of. And honestly, I believe every accusation because I've seen this happen in real time. Okay. So we are going to talk about it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go to the Cartier family channel. Shout out to them. Okay, let me make sure y'all can see. Okay. All right, let me mute myself.
That's the Somalian flag.
There, that's better. Brothers.
Y'all see how goofy Tim Walz is? I'm sorry. As somebody who has been living out in the United States for a year and a half, you would never see a government official do something like that. First of all, let me say this. Americans, regardless of the shit people talk about us, and we definitely have our ways when we move abroad. For example, in Colombia, I've never seen an American attend any type of political protest. We mind our business. We don't get involved in their politics, at least not to where we're visibly involved. You will never see an American protesting in favor of illegal immigration. As a matter of fact, when we know other Americans have overstayed their visas, we talk bad about them. So you will never see the government in any other country do what Tim Walz just did. Put up the flag of another country side by side. And it's just goofy. It's super goofy. But anyway.
Behold it. A white land of the north. Snow everywhere. But look, the skyline, just like on the old drawings. 3 centuries our elders taught. Behold, this is Mina Somalia. 3 centuries past, it was promised to us. On these horses through the snow, we have found our land at last. It belongs to us now.
Legislation that led to the $250 million being defrauded. She held events at one of the restaurants that was named in the fraud case and had a former staffer who was convicted in the fraud investigation. That's from the New York Post. And 60 of the 79 people who've been indicted in this are from her 5th congressional district there in Minnesota.
Something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish.
Here we go. Here we go. If you want to win the argument, just compare yourself to the Jews. Just compare people who disagree with you in your cultural values to the Nazis. There are a lot. I honestly feel like in order for you to, let me just say how I really feel. I feel like if you come from a country or a culture that is extremely different from the United States, you should not be allowed to immigrate. We shouldn't allow them in, period. So, for example, in Somalia, I believe that you can marry children as young as 9 years old, and they tried to make it illegal. And the men were literally getting on the internet crying about it. Like grown men were getting on the internet crying because they could not marry children. And like the next day, they reversed it. And that is something that is too far left. Like, you're not supposed to get married in most cases until you're like 18. We have laws about this. You're not supposed to marry children. And there you can marry children at 9 years old. That's why in a lot of areas where you have a heavily concentrated Somalian population, those men are going and like brutally raping young girls. And people can say, well, American citizens rape young girls. Yeah, but like, first of all, I'm a big believer that if you already have a problem, you don't throw gasoline on it. But you are increasing the chances of the likelihood of something like that occurring if you import a population where the men feel like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I feel like every single liberal woman who believes in women's rights and feminism, they should be speaking up against this. They should be concerned for the safety of young girls. But I know, so let's continue.
People in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she brought that up, because what she tries to pretend like is that they don't have to assimilate. In her mind, they should be able to come here and keep their same customs, cultural traditions, and behave how they were behaving back home, and they shouldn't have to assimilate. And what she doesn't understand, that even back then they had programs to force assimilation. They did. It was a big thing. I mean, the same conversation that we're having right now, they had back then. They were having during the Gilded Age, and what they did to fix the situation is they forced these children and the new immigrants to go to programs where they had to learn American culture and assimilate. That was the solution.
We are citizens, we are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
If y'all think that Ilhan Omar was not a part of that scheme and she has attachments to the people who were a part of it, you know, you are a fool. You absolutely, absolutely. And then what y'all have to understand about a lot of these immigrant communities, especially ones like these African immigrant communities, they all know each other. Like they all know each other. They all know each other's business. If y'all think that this a scam of this magnitude was going on and she did not know about it, you are sadly mistaken.
horta aad iyo aadaan ugu faraxsanahay in maanta safaari aan soo gaarnay sida dadka badan ay u og yihiin ciyaalkeena yaryar ilaa iyo number la eg 20 milyan oo ciyaal iskuuley ah waxay cuntadooda ka helaan iskoolka keliyo.
The whistleblowers that I've spoken to are saying that the governor knew, and the governor and lieutenant governor and even Chris Schmitter, who was his chief of staff, came to them as staff and scolded them for pointing out fraud.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar told CNN this week she believes the fraud spiraled out of control because COVID programs were rolled out without sufficient guardrails. It's also worth noting.
Now she's blaming the government. Like, yes, the people in my community committed fraud, but it's only because y'all didn't create any type of stipulations to prevent them from committing fraud. When at this time, all the Democrats were like, this is a national emergency. Everything has to move fast, quick. Y'all know how it was back then. Now the issue was there wasn't sufficient guardrails, which to some extent I agree, but y'all remember at that time, things were moving very, very fast. Now, just because somebody is not preventing you from committing fraud doesn't mean that you have the right to commit fraud.
The owner of the restaurant where Omar held her 2018 victory party is among those from the Somali community who have been convicted of profiting from the schemes. Harris?
We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Eg asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was just
When did you send the letter? Because to my understanding, she sent that letter to cover her behind after the investigation had already began.
just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota.
Ma'am, and y'all cashed out. Whatever y'all contribute into the tax system, y'all more than cash out for it. 80% of your community is on welfare. So let's not. Now, I'm not saying that they don't work, because the perception is that the majority, 80% of them are not working. That's not true. This is the hustle that a lot of Africans do when they come over here. They will pretend that they don't work, but they will have a business where they are making money under the table in cash. They're going on a job every day or working for themselves, but they will do things like use their food stamps to buy supplies for their restaurants or businesses. So it's the finesse. They understand, use the government money to flip it and make more money. So I'm not saying they're lazy. That's not what I'm saying. But committing fraud and scamming, definitely so. It's happening.
We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset.
Ma'am, people don't care, and they're not gonna acknowledge that it harmed your community because your community is already receiving a generous amount of government assistance. So no, people don't care, and you're not gonna convince them to care.
Upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Fraud investigators are finding in Minnesota is growing by the day. Kelly Loeffler, who leads the Small Business Administration, says in the 2 days her agency has been investigating the state, they've uncovered at least $1 million in PPP fraud just 2 days in. Several of the whistleblowers in Minnesota have also told lawmakers they believe the total amount of fraud could total up to more than $8 billion.
I believe it. And guess what? They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. This is why I've said it before and I'll say it again. For the Black people who are still talking about white people need to pay us reparations, you got all your reparations during COVID. Everything you owed. I know so many Black people who did not have any businesses who committed PPP fraud and got like $250,000 loans. I knew one woman who got like 3 $250,000 loans. I saw y'all buying so much stuff that you didn't need. Y'all didn't even take it and do right or reinvest it. The majority of y'all were buying things to go stunt. And that's why I said, even if you were to give Black people reparations, it would just recirculate. Like, it wouldn't stay in the community. It would just recirculate. It would be in Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada. We wouldn't do right with it. But I believe it because I know what was going on in my city. There was so much.
Governor Tim Walz, who is up for re-election, is under fire for all of this happening under his watch. But he says they have paused these programs. They've brought in outside auditors to get an idea of how far-reaching this fraud was. They're taking steps to keep it from happening again. And he's defending his management of the state while also taking shots at Republicans and the president.
And in spite of the headwinds we're up against, Minnesota ranks economically, economic growth, happiness, number of people insured, education level.
All the government assistance that has flowed through your state, you should be doing well economically. The people should be happy. People, like, a lot of your constituents are on welfare. It's a very generous state. Like, I would be happy too. So what are we talking about? Yes, you absolutely should be happy. What?
Near the very top. So I'll tell you what, I have no interest in having this state look like Oklahoma or Mississippi.
Oh, hell no.
And if folks are going to commit crimes here, thinking because our generous spirit and our programs that we have is going to give them some kind of cover, they are sadly mistaken.
How do you even?
I mean, he can talk tough now, but the damage has already been done. That money has already been stolen, sent overseas, washed. Like, that money is gone. It's not coming back.
Can't be just as Somalians to get $8 billion. They poll the people there.
Or is it like the suicide rate? But anyways,
No,
besides
they poll them. That's how they get it. They poll people.
Oh, are you happy?
Yes.
I ain't got poll.
When would you answer a poll?
I don't know. Anyway.
Exactly.
Wow. So $8 billion. I mean, Tim Walz, man, you knew this. Let's be real. If the Somalians was riding around in black trucks, all of a sudden, you know that what's going on? Is this grocery? Is this from grocery store money?
I'm not gonna lie, them Somalis are master finessers.
How
they
are?
Said 50% of them on fake visas, $8 billion in fraud, and then they got they leader Ilhan Omar poking at the president, and now they getting investigated, and now they about to get their ass in trouble.
Honestly and truly, if I was Ilhan Omar, I would be quiet. I don't understand how you can be involved in so much scandal and think that it's wise to place yourself in the public eye. because I think they're going to talk about it in this video. People are alleging that she has committed marriage fraud, and as many times as she has been married, I've seen this before. I know what it looks like. I have to say allegedly. Allegedly, Ilhan Omar was very much committing marriage fraud. Allegedly. So if you have that checkered of a background, you need to be quiet and you need to be under the radar, not complaining about the United States when you can't even go back to your own war-torn country.
Trouble. Oh, but Trump's racist. You should have just shut y'all ass up and kept doing fraud. Tim Walz was helping y'all get away with it. He was helping you. And y'all just had to poke the bear. You had to be a hero. And now your people gonna pay the cost.
Yeah, I knew Ilhan Omar's network was like 30 million.
It's 30 million?
Yes, bro.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what I'm like.
she was cleaning up.
Is her some dude like, you know, is she inside or like, you know, maybe
She might
so,
be. She might
but
be.
like,
She's probably inside trading and scraping up some of that million.
But
the
do her-
$1 billion that's missing.
do her Somalian ass know how to work the stock market though?
She know how to get it.
They
in
tell her
government.
which one to
She ain't
get.
that stupid.
They tell
She's
her
insider.
Ooh.
They say it's about to blow. Invest.
Ooh.
She got a Robin Hood.
Wow, man. Now this is absolutely insane, guys. Tim, I just really don't like that guy, man. Football coach ass talk.
Nah, he
Despite
like
the headwinds we're up against.
he like the
What's really crazy is that in an alternate universe, this would have been our vice president. In an alternate universe, Tim Walz would have been our vice president. This is why, even though I have my criticisms, and I will talk about that more on this channel, of the Trump administration, I certainly have my criticisms. In certain areas, actually quite a few areas, I understood that the United States was at a tipping point. And that at the very least, we needed to stop the bleeding. You cannot convince me that if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz wouldn't have got in office, that would have been, I mean, I can't imagine what our country would look like after 4 years. And then here's the thing, we're in a situation now where a lot of the jobs are being taken over by AI. A lot of these companies want cheap labor. So the American population was definitely being replaced. We probably would be in a situation where a lot of these states would be forever, these swing states would be made into forever liberal states. Massive illegal immigration continuing across the border, people making money off of human trafficking of children across the border. They still haven't found all of those children that went missing. They were being delivered across the border wholesale. Whole states, whole communities being run over. This country would be unrecognizable if this was able to continue for another 4 years. People in other countries getting rich off of the American taxpayer, not that that's not still going on in certain cases, because it is, just to a far lesser extent.